Palestine. Freedom for Palestine. The suffering children, the violated children, the children who reports show, little kids, when they're arrested, they are interrogated. They are forced to sign documents that are in Hebrew that they can't even read. They are smashed in the mouth with the butt of rifles, and they are intimidated by dogs. These are independent reports from agencies in the United Kingdom and the United States, independent NGOs who are reporting that the so-called only democracy in the Middle East is really uncivilized and barbaric and inhumane and a cancer of the Middle East that needs to be dismantled, hopefully peacefully. Our next speaker is Brother Mauri Saalakhan. Brother Mauri doesn't need any introduction. He is the Executive Director of the Peace Through Justice Foundation, and we invite Brother Mauri to speak to us at this time. Takbir.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. A nation of people born from injustice, causing great sorrow in all civilized among us. You claim your only concern to be your security, but your true intent is plain enough for everyone to see. There are Jews among you who detest what you do, but their voices are muffled and they seem to be few. You're proud and you're arrogant, malicious and clever. You seem to think world sympathy is going to shield you forever. Oh, but the bed is too short and the covers are too narrow. You can't see the handwriting for your scope is too narrow. Aggressive you've been since the day you were born, from the anguish and misery of lives you have torn. Israel, oh Israel, where will you be when the pages have dried on your history? Brothers and sisters, that poem, ladies and gentlemen, was written in 1982 after Israel's siege on Lebanon, the massacres that took place at Sabra and Shatila. It could have been written today, because what was happening then is still happening now. In fact, it's only got deeper. I'm often reminded of the first president of the United States' words of advice to his compatriots. General George Washington, the father of America, in his farewell address to the Union, he warned against both the evils and the pitfalls of America giving favorite nation status to any nation. He warned against the consequence that would result from the type of relationship we have today with the state of Israel. And what we have been seeing all over the world, including right here in the United States, is the collateral damage that has resulted from one generation of politicians and policymakers after another, one generation after another, ignoring the sage advice given by the father, the political father of this country. For those of you who have never read George Washington's farewell address, in the age of the internet, I would encourage you, when you get back home or get back to your offices, Google George Washington farewell address and read it in its entirety. You will see how U.S. politicians and policymakers from both parties, Republicans and Democrats, and many of the independents in between, have been violating not only the sage advice of this man that they claim to hold high, this historic personage that they claim to hold in high esteem, but they have been violating the very Constitution of the United States. They have been violating the political ideals that this country is supposed to be founded upon. We have two Americas. We have an America that is beautiful, that people all over the world will risk their lives to come to. And then we have an America that is ugly as hell. And for most of our American history, we have seen the uglier twin. And we have got to fight like hell against that uglier twin before things get much worse. I want to speak just a couple of minutes about the collateral damage. The collateral damage that has resulted from this quote-unquote special relationship. Part of the collateral damage is the lives that are being lost right now overseas. The lie that was told to get us to attack Iraq. The lie that was told. A lie, a deliberate lie. It wasn't a lie that was came about by mistake. This was a deliberate lie. It was just like the lie that the Reagan administration told when they bombed Libya in 1983. Was it 83 or 86? In 1985, when they bombed Libya, I'll never forget when Bernard Kalb, a high-level Reagan administration official, resigned in protest. He resigned in protest. And we need to see more politicians of principle doing this today. He resigned in protest. He didn't wait until he was out of political office to speak truth to power. He resigned in protest because of the consequence, he said, of an administration, a presidency, deliberately lying to the American people. And when he resigned in protest, it created an immediate stir in the media. It didn't last that long, but it did occur. And in defense of the administration, then Secretary of State George Shultz said, in defending the administration's policy and lying, he said, in times of war, sometimes truth must be attended by a bodyguard of lies. This was his administration's defense. Well, these lies are still being told. These lies have gotten us into Iraq. These lies have gotten us into Afghanistan, where we have had what they call the blood and treasure of America wasted. Its soldiers. But the number of soldiers that have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan pales in comparison to the hundreds of thousands of Muslims that have been killed in these two theaters of war based on a lie. Our foreign policy in the Middle East based on a lie, based on subterfuge of the highest order. And we as a people are being called upon to finance it with our tax dollars. I'm hoping that after today, those of you who are here will take what you're hearing and just take it to another level. We need protests against these politicians and against this political system that is raping our tax dollars for this kind of murder and mayhem in our name. We need to put a stop to this. And we as a people can put a stop to it. We can. There's also a woman, a young woman, a beautiful young American woman by the name of Rachel Corrie. There's a picture out here of Rachel after an Israeli soldier deliberately murdered her in broad daylight in the presence of witnesses, rolled over her with one of the American-made, specially made bulldozers by Caterpillar in Peoria, Illinois. Rolled over her and then back over her. Just broke her body up. 23 years old. What was her crime? Her crime was simply trying to prevent the destruction of a Palestinian home. This was her crime. This was her capital offense. And at the end of the day, Israel, when it conducted its investigation, it found that the fault was not on the operator of this specially made bulldozer. The fault was on Rachel Corrie for being where she was, in a place where she shouldn't have been, according to them. We have another example with Iran. You would think that after all of the murder and mayhem that we have delivered to Afghanistan and to Iraq,
in the name of a war on terrorism, that we would know better than to be now beating the drums for another war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is madness. This is insanity. But the French philosopher Voltaire once said, those who can make us believe absurdities can also cause us to commit atrocities. And there are many, many, many atrocities being committed in our name because we are silent. Those of us who are driving by, those of us who are walking by, we believe as Muslims, and those of us who are Christians, and those of us who are believing Jews, not believers in Zionism, but believers in Judaism, believers in the Torah. We believe that a leaf doesn't fall to the ground except by the awareness, by the knowledge and the permission of God. We believe this. And so those of you who are driving by with your windows down at this time, those of you who are walking by, those of you who decided to stop to see what this crowd was all about, it was not by just happen chance that you were here. You are guided here. You are blessed to be here, to be listening to what you're hearing right now. Now the challenge for you is to take what you're hearing, take it back and use it. Take it back and use it to make America better. That's what this demonstration is all about. It's not just about defending our brothers and sisters in Palestine. It's also about making America better. I'm going to end with this. This last point of collateral damage. There is a woman, there is a Muslim woman, a Pakistani woman who came to the United States when she was only 18 years old. She came to the United States and she spent her first year in Houston, Texas as a freshman at the University of Houston. And then she left Houston and went to Boston and graduated from two of the finest universities in the country, MIT and Brandeis. She got her PhD at Brandeis. This young woman's name is Rachel, subhanAllah, I got Rachel Corey on the mind. May Allah bless her soul. This young woman of whom I speak now, her name is Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Dr. Afia Siddiqui, for the past 7 years, has been in a living nightmare. 5 of those years, when she went back home to visit her family, she had just left her family's home in Karachi in a taxi cab. And before she made it to the airport to visit her family in a family member in Islamabad, she was taken out of the taxi. She was kidnapped. She was renditioned. She and her 3 young children. And they disappeared for 5 years. Nobody knew where they were. And then 4 men escaped from Bagram in Afghanistan. And when they told their tales about what they had witnessed and what they experienced, they also told the story of one woman who was there, prisoner 650, who they identified as a Pakistani woman in her early 30s, who had spent many years in the United States going to school, who had young children she was torn away from and didn't know where they were. And they talked about how she would scream on a daily basis because of what she was being put through. She would scream on a daily basis. This is Afia Siddiqui. For the past 2 years, she has been locked up in a maximum security detention center in New York City. I wanted to end with her for a couple of reasons. I want the Muslims in the closing days of Ramadan to make dua for your sister and for all of the other Muslim political prisoners and other political prisoners in the United States of America. Make dua for them. Because the dua in the month of Ramadan, the prayers, the supplications in the month of Ramadan are very special supplications. Remember your sister, remember her family. But the other thing I want you to do, those of us who have the ability to make it to New York, which is not far away, I go back and forth all the time. Tomorrow morning, I'll be leaving to go back to New York City. We are hoping that you will be there on the 23rd of September. The 23rd of September.